What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JohnnyVTV Live. I'm yours truly, JohnnyVTV. Join with me is Nick Durst and Kyle Donnelly. What's happening, boys?
What is up, Johnny V? We all have something in common here. All of our football teams suck and lost week one.
That's very true. Very, very true.
They didn't just lose. They got beat down.
Oh, they got beat down. They all got beat down. But you know what? Hey, it was great to have football back. That's for damn sure. Love the tribute that the Giants were doing for the FDNY over the weekend as well. That was real class.
You know what, man? It's crazy you say that because did you guys see like the universal, or not universal, but like the league-wide national anthem for every game? Honestly, dude, like it was so moving. It was an unbelievable performance. Like it was a great tribute. The girl that sang it was just out of this world. Absolutely beautiful, man. Love to see it, especially on the 20-year anniversary. Couldn't get enough of it, to tell you the truth. Yeah,
Q1043 did a Tunnels to Towers concert over at Nikon Jones Beach Theater, and when they did the national anthem, it really put a tear in my eye, man. It was a moving weekend for the country, no doubt.
So, are you guys ready? We have a great guest. We got Killer Kevin Davis from the Game Day talking about all his week ones, about all his week twos. What do you think? We got to bring him out, right? Let's bring him out. Mr. Killer Kevin Davis, welcome to the party, sir. How you doing today?
Pretty good. What's up, Johnny?
You know what, man? Football's back. I'm happy. I will say, though, like there was a couple good games week one. I was disappointed on some of my outcomes here and some of the games. But, I mean, just overall, I feel like you got to be happy, right? And we're in a good spot for week two.
Yeah, definitely. And it's good to see some one-possession games and some of these underdogs having a shot.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, there was what was it? It was like 12 upsets this week. 12 underdogs covered. It was outrageous this week.
Yeah, and other than a handful of teams, virtually all these teams have a chance of winning in their games.
Cowboys killed me right away.
Even the Texans. Texans don't look as awful as you would have expected.
Yeah, no, you know what? They look good, put up 37. The Jaguars just were not it could be a long year for them. There was I think before the season started or when he got hired, Urban Meyer was 50-1 to be that first head coach fired. It moved up to 5-1 after they got destroyed by Houston.
He might quit. He might go take the USC job.
He might, man. He might. That dude, we got to see if he's cut out for the NFL. We've seen many successful college coaches not be able to cut it at the professional level.
Nick Saban.
I don't think anybody would win with the Jaguars coaching him this year, though.
No, you're right about that, Kevin. But, I mean, he's more of while we're talking about Urban Meyer, he's a suitcase kind of coach. I mean, he bounces from program to program to program. He started out at Utah, then moved to Florida, then went up to Ohio State after a long leave of absence. So you tell me.
I mean, that's every single coach if you want to be high up. There's not many Marvin Lewises out there who coached Cincinnati forever.
Look, Bill Cowher hasn't come back anytime soon, and the guy probably could coach if he wanted to. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, that's one of the lowest, life expectancies is being a head coach in any professional sport. It's probably even worse for turnover than when I used to work for a government call center.
Oof, that's crazy.
Most of the people I was with, my first year on that job, quit or got fired. So that probably had lower turnover than being a head coach in the NFL.
Kev, we're gonna have to have a conversation about that because I'm very interested. But first, man, like how you feeling about week one? Let's get some reactions here. Who or what stood out to you? There was a lot of upsets. There was a lot of head scratchers. There was a lot of surprises. What stood out to you?
Well, I wasn't surprised by any of it. I think, the lines were set mainly based on people reacting to last year and not realizing how much parity all these teams have when they're fully at strength. So it's a short season. So theoretically, one of these bad teams can go on a run and make the playoffs. The Raiders aren't nearly as bad as their futures odds suggested. Obviously, the Ravens blew that game, but Derek Carr was able to, put some points on the board pretty quickly when they needed it. And, Las Vegas, that may be their new home, but, those fans love that team. They're not just there because it's Vegas. One thing that stood out to me about the Raiders is 10 minutes before that game ended, I was able to lay a 100-1 Super Bowl future on the Raiders. And I don't know if the odds have moved since.
You think the Raiders you'd give them a shot to win the Super Bowl?
I mean, those are break-even odds of 1%, so why not?
So what was the it's not, I don't think it's it, but was it from The Office? He goes, anybody ever gives you 10,000 to 1, you take it. Or plus 10,000.
Kevin in The Office, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, his name was Kevin?
Ironically, right?
That's great. I'll bet on anything ridiculous if it's the right price.
That sounds exactly like Kevin from The Office. If somebody gives you 10,000 to 1 odds on something, you take it.
Kyle, what stood out to you this week?
Let me tell you what really stood out to me was 2 games. One was Cincinnati. I mean, I'll get to the more obvious one in a second, but the Cincinnati Minnesota game. I mean, wow. How does Minnesota blow that game? That game, what was that game? 7-point spread going into that game? I mean, Minnesota should have had that game locked up just based on paper and all the talent that surrounds them on offense. And then, they got a couple, they still got pretty good defense from last year as well. And they just didn't show up against a Cincinnati team that clearly wanted it more. And Joe Burrow led a young Bengals team, and we'll see what happens with them. Now, my second surprise, which it bothers me because this is one of my games, and we talked about it last week as one of our sure bets, was the Green Bay Packers against the New Orleans Saints. I mean, how the last dance with Aaron Rodgers and this Green Bay Packers team, and it's just turning into a dumpster fire already. What the hell is going on? At least I'm not a Packers fan. I mean, I got my own worries to worry about. I mean, Matt LaFleur clearly can't get it right over there. What the hell's going to go down with Green Bay?
I think the Saints are legit, and you shouldn't, discount their loss just from the Packers and the Aaron Rodgers drama.
Jameis Winston threw for less than 200 yards. He was not all that impressive. They only had him throw where he had to throw, which was in a red zone situation.
But last year with Drew Brees, their biggest strength was their defense.
So the thing about New Orleans
with Drew Brees, Drew Brees is more up here, though.
Yeah, but the thing about New Orleans is typically their defense can look really good at times or could look really bad. They're a hyper-aggressive defense. They really took it to Tom Brady in 2 matchups. I mean, and obviously you saw what they did Sunday against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. So they're a weird team. I think they're not going to be a pushover. Sean Payton's teams very rarely are, so it's definitely going to be a team to keep your eye out on. I mean, I also took their under this season because I didn't think they were going to win more than 9 games. A lot of football left. I will say this, though. I know it's week 1. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, you cannot be putting up the last dance on Instagram with the Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen picture and play like that and lose to Jameis Winston. If you're putting up Michael Jordan in your story, you cannot play like that.
You can't come up like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade against the Mavericks.
What do you say, Kev?
You have to remember that Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but I mean that's a lot. That's different. I mean, he had one of
he
the
was
top
worse
3 defenses of all time.
James Winston.
Yeah, but Winston's not bad. Trent Dilfer never threw 30 touchdown passes in the season, did he?
All-time defense around him too. Literally one of the best defenses ever, led by one of the greatest linebackers ever. Who could have orchestrated killing somebody. We'll not talk about that.
Okay, well, you know what? We haven't heard from Nick today. So, Nick, what stood out to you this week?
What stood out to me was how right I was on this show last week when I said, bet Kyler Murray for MVP. 5 touchdowns, 4 passing, 1 rush, over 300 yards total for him between rushing and passing. And I said, bet the Cardinals to win the NFC West. The value's there. And it's a great 1-2 punch there. And what can I say? The Cardinals are looking great. And I told you so. You know I'm right.
I think the Long Island guy knows what he's talking about.
All right, well, here's what it is.
I'm
Kyler
not from
Murray
Long
definitely.
Island.
You're from Staten.
That's worse.
I'm sorry.
That's worse.
It's better.
All
That's
right,
where
so
the Wu-Tang is from, so I don't have any disrespect for the island.
I got no
Staten.
disrespect for Staten either because I got some family out there as well.
So here's the thing, Nick. I listen. Kyler Murray looked great. He really did, and I have him on one of my fantasy teams. You know, he looks like a little rugrat. He's like Tommy Pickles reincarnated, playing quarterback. And the big thing about Kyler Murray is, I do think that it's not a bad MVP pick. He moved up plus 600 from 1,800 to 1,200 in the MVP race. But I mean, obviously, being a long season, you know, I still think there's better value, and I don't know if the Cardinals are going to be there at the end, but definitely, you know, it's off to a hot start. I would say I have two surprise teams, or two things that stood out to me, not really surprises. Number one, let's go with their opponent, the Tennessee Titans. They looked flat. They looked embarrassed. They looked lost without Arthur Smith on offense. Their offensive line was brutal. Chandler Jones, 5 sacks on Taylor Lewan, and then the worst part was Taylor Lewan takes Twitter to thank Chandler Jones. I mean, bro, like, you know, saying you got exposed is one thing, but thanking this guy, no good. Julio was unimpressive in his debut. There was 3 balls that he should have caught. Henry, unimpressive. Tannehill, he had no time. A.J. Brown, no good. So, I mean, it's going to be a big test in Seattle this week. We're going to get to that game a little bit later. Then I would say the next one is the Falcons, man. Taking Arthur Smith, their line looked as bad as it's ever been. Now, listen. Following the Falcons for as long as I have, I realized it's a weird thing. The Eagles are one of those teams Atlanta's always struggled with to protect against. Always. Ever since I've been watching them, the Eagles just have their number in the trenches. But to score 6 points, especially, you know, Atlanta's offense was looking pretty solid in the first half. And to come out and not even put up any points in the red zone outside of a couple field goals is just disgusting. You know, Arthur Smith had one of, if not the best red zone offense the last 2 seasons, and they don't score a touchdown. Unacceptable to me. So they're going to have to turn that around, especially if you have a Calvin Ridley, a Matt Ryan, a Mike Davis, or Kyle Pitts in fantasy.
One thing, if I could, just on Nick's thought, Johnny, as far as the Cardinals go, I mean, they're a really great bet to win that division as far as I'm concerned. I think their defense has really improved from last year, especially through the draft. I mean, they drafted a couple really nice pieces that showed out against Tennessee this past week. I'm not going to go overboard with Tennessee yet because it's week 1, but if this happens 2 weeks in, like another 2 weeks, and it goes to 3 weeks of this garbage, yeah, I'm going to sound the alarm.
All I'll say is watch out for that Minnesota game. Vikings plus 4.5. Cardinals, they're very hyped up right now. I think it's a little bit of a trap. I would really look Minnesota getting the 4.5. The Vikings are a little bit rusty. They got hosed on a really bad fumble call on Sunday. But so
lock in the Cardinals.
No, I'm not locking in the Cardinals. We can make that prediction later. But week 2 matchups you're looking forward to the most. Kev, let me start with you. Who are you highlighting on your slate?
For college or pro?
Pro, baby. We're not talking college right now. We're talking pro, man. Let's get to the big leagues.
I mean, I'm interested in seeing how Kansas City does this week.
What specifically? Why are you highlighting them? I mean, you know, they came back against the Ravens or against the Browns last week, but do you think this is finally time for Baltimore to right the ship and get off the schneid against them?
I mean, I'm interested in seeing how the line moves because Baltimore, you know, people are probably down on them based on the Monday Night Football game. But, you know, Kansas, so people are going to pile in Kansas City. They're Super AFC champions last year, Super Bowl champions the year before. So this could be a good spot for the Ravens.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the line opened at 2.5 and it's up to 3.5, maybe even 4 in some cases. So, you know, I hate to say it, but bettors need to start looking at taking the lines earlier in the week. I typically haven't liked to do that in the past with the injuries and now with the COVID, But I mean, if you watch Kansas City, you know nobody got hurt for them. Getting them at 2.5 against Baltimore is almost like stealing money. So it's all about value where you're getting the line, because now if the line's pushing 4 against Baltimore, I really do think this is something that you have to think about and see where the public money is and see where the public bets are. But Nick, what do you think, buddy? How you feeling for week 2? What do you like?
Listen, there's a few games I want to check out. Obviously, the NFC East is looking like it's going to be a repeat of last year, although the Cowboys did look good last Thursday offensively, give them that. So right away, this Thursday, Washington versus the Giants, 2 teams coming off a loss here. I think Heineke is going to light up the Giants defense, and Jason Garrett just looks clueless calling plays for the Giants, and Daniel Jones can't hold on to the ball. But beyond that, big game Sunday, Raiders and Steelers. Let's see who's legit here. That's going to be a good one. And Bills-Dolphins is a big game for the Bills here, because the Dolphins win this one, they could potentially run away with the division here. I just think that it's crucial for the Bills to bounce back here. They have to win this game. It's crazy to say week 2 is a must win, but for the AFC East, I think it is.
Interesting you say that. We talked off air a little bit. Miami, man, I liked them to win the division, except for Tua. I didn't buy him. And listen, he was okay against New England. New England's got a pretty strong defense. I'm not sold on it yet, because I have to see it from Tua first. But the rest of their team, man, it's pretty good. They have one of the more complete rosters in football. And, we said it, Buffalo is not – they're not that good, man. I really don't – when it comes down to it, in the cream of the crop of the AFC, yeah, they're up there. But, they're a team that's iffy. They can't run the ball. Their defense isn't that great. And if you get stymied in the passing game, like we saw with the Steelers, they don't really have many other ways to beat you. So this is definitely an important win. Buffalo can't start 0-2, and yeah, they need this win. What do you think, Kyle?
I really like that Buffalo Dolphins game. I mean, that's a big AFC East matchup. That's going to have some fire to it, just being a division game. But just to go a little different here off the beaten path, I'm going to go Rams Colts. Personally, simply because I love what the Rams did offensively. Matthew Stafford looked very, very comfortable in that offense. For your Robert Woods owners out there, don't panic yet. I would say just hold the boat steady right now. It'll get better. But as far as that is concerned, that's going to be a great offensive matchup for them. Their defense is also very good. Led by Aaron Donald. And then you got on the other side of it, you've got the Colts, who I think, did they come out and have a dumper of a game against Seattle? Yeah, of course they did. But I think that they're a good enough team where they should come back and they should definitely play a hell of a game, if not maybe win this game, going against the Rams. I mean, it's a toss-up game in my mind. And Indianapolis is home, so we'll see how it goes.
Something I like that. That would be one of the games to look at. I'm worried about the Colts a little bit. Just they looked rusty. They have no Quentin Nelson. Their offensive line had no cohesion. A lot of sacks. They didn't run the ball particularly well. And, they got gashed by Russell Wilson. They had no Xavier Rhodes. But, I mean, this is the funny thing about football, right? You see Indianapolis week 1. You see LA week 1. The Rams have to go, to west to east. It's not technically the Eastern time zone, I don't think. I think it's a Central time zone. But this is almost like a letdown spot for the Rams. Maybe not even a loss, but Indianapolis to cover the 4 at home dogs. We saw it last week. The dogs were barking. And this could be a letdown spot for the Rams, at least in the spread. But it's not out of the ordinary to see LA kind of underperform. You saw David Montgomery and the Bears run the ball right down their throats. Jonathan Taylor against this Rams defense, you don't know what he could do. He might actually gash them and really control the clock. So it's good to highlight that. I would say of the 3 games that we haven't highlighted, coming up next, I would say the game that I'm looking forward to is I don't want to sound like a homer, but being in Tampa, I'm excited to see it. The Bucks Falcons 4:05, late afternoon game in Tampa. Matt Ryan is 0-6 in his career against Tom Brady. It includes a Super Bowl. Atlanta looks like they could be in a free fall very quickly. It looks like they could go spiraling. So I want to see if Arthur Smith made any type of adjustments. Matt Ryan almost got killed against Philly. So I want to see if he stays alive during Tampa Bay.
It's a rout, Tampa Bay.
It might be. It's 12.5 points right now. So I'm curious to see. But I will say this.
Rout.
I'll say this. Atlanta, they usually play the division tough. But, hey, Kevin, while we're starting it off here, give me some of your best bets for week 2.
Well, I actually got college football best bets, but I know you're talking about pro. So college football, I'm digging Tulane this week against Ole Miss at plus 14.5, but also their money line currently at plus 480. They have a team that could run with Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to run up the score with Lane Kiffin as their coach. But Tulane, has a similar spread run option offense. And they've had some pretty impressive victories over the last couple of years. They came pretty close to beating Oklahoma within one touchdown. So that's one I'm looking at. I'm looking at Ball State against Wyoming. Wyoming has looked pretty weak in their first 2 games. Looking at Penn State against Auburn, at minus 6.5. Penn State looked very impressive against Wisconsin. They stuffed their run, and Auburn doesn't have that good of a quarterback, and they seem to run the ball a lot. And it's going to be at Penn State.
So going with the spirit of your Tulane pick, who's your emerging player of the night?
So my emerging player of the night is the Tulane head coach, Willie Fritz.
Let's go.
So nobody really knows about him. He's a group of 5 coach, but since he's been with Georgia Southern and Tulane, he's found a way to take what are not necessarily the most talented players and put them together well as a team. He's great at managing games. I remember one game where he went into a victory formation to make it look like he was running on the clock to go to overtime, but instead it was a fake victory formation, and they threw a 40-yard touchdown. So he is the type of coach that could, as a group of 5 school, beat an SEC school as an almost plus 480 money line underdog.
Love to see it, man. We absolutely love when you stop by, and we can't wait to have you on during the season. And it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Stay picking winners, my man, and we'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you joining the show.
Thanks for the love, Johnny.
Thank you, Kev.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. That was Killer Kevin Davis. He, that man picks winners. Love to have him. Love to see it.
Loves the college games. I'll give him that. I like that.
He does, man. He picks a lot of college games. That's his bread and butter.
You got a college team?
Dude, I tried to put in a college parlay for the first weekend of football. That's how bad my itch was. It was only a $2 parlay,
What's your team? What's your team? Your college team?
Well, that would clearly be the T-shirt that I'm rocking here. The 4 Horsemen of Notre Dame from the old
tough
school
schedule
days.
for Notre Dame.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's not going to matter because what will happen is Notre Dame will end up going undefeated with Jack Cohen as their quarterback and yada, yada, yada. And then guess what will happen? They'll get routed by Bama again. All
right, Kyle. So in any case here, we have to continue our week 2 matchups. So the first game I think we need to highlight is one that could produce a lot of points. It's one of the highest totals of the week at 55. It's the Cowboys at the Chargers, both coming off 2 different ends of the spectrum. Cowboys coming off a very close loss. Chargers coming off a very close win. But they're 2 potent offenses that could really move the ball and get it going. So, Nick, what are you feeling about this game?
Go Chargers, go! To quote Arnold Schwarzenegger. Listen, Herbert looked great last week. Chargers are on this big win streak now, dating back to last year. This is another guy that is great value to bet him for MVP. 3 of the last 4 MVPs were sophomore quarterbacks, so take that for what it's worth as far as betting trends go. But Got to take the over, I think, Johnny, in this one because there's not going to be that much defense between these two teams. That's just the way it is. Give me the Chargers -3 as well. I think because this game is in Los Angeles, that's going to be the big difference there. So I think the Chargers will win, and it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it'll hit out the over, but just barely. Unfortunately, guys, I got to go, so I'll leave you to it. I'll get back to more consistency moving forward here. But listen, I know everybody tunes into the show here because they want to see Kyle and Johnny go at it.
Wow, so we're gonna get a half hour of it.
Yeah, and I got this kid. He's doing it. He's doing the show off on Android 1.0 here. So
Kyle's playing Xbox. He's doing it, and he's
my hands are free.
Kyle's giving you a red stock for his Emerge Player of the Night. But I'll be back next week. Sorry, guys, but best of luck to you, Kyle, because it's going to be
it's going to be a rough one. Yes.
All right.
Take care, Nick. Good seeing you again,
Mr. Durst. Great co-host. So, I mean, just to kind of echo here what he was saying about the Cowboys Chargers, it's very interesting because, dude, when you look back at it, the Chargers have won 5 straight games dating back to last season. They won 3 of their last 4 home games. They're 10-7 against the spread the last 2 seasons. And Justin Herbert on Sunday, he looked phenomenal, man. I mean, the bottom line stats aren't going to say it. He had a phantom fumble. I don't know how you fumble a ball that goes 30 yards forward. Like, it just, to me, it's – I don't know how that happens. I think that was a fluke fumble. He had 5 or 6 drops. And, Herbert's going to shred the Cowboys defense after putting it on display against one of the best defensive units in football in Washington. So I really do like them. But, I mean – we'll get to this game from a betting aspect later, but what are you feeling about this game?
I was going to say, let me just give my thoughts real quick. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how I feel about the Chargers being favored here. I mean, I do like them, but I mean, damn, Dak Prescott looked really impressive on Thursday night against the league's considerably the league's best defense, right? Arguably, right, Johnny? So that being said, I think he's just determined to light it up this year. He's going to be in the MVP conversation as far as I'm concerned. But I still think that Dak probably loses this game. But I think it's going to be like by a point or two. I think that the Cowboys could even cover in this game. It could be just like how it was against Tampa Bay the other night where they're that close.
Well, I lost the Tampa Bay cover. I put it out to everybody at -8, which would have covered.
You were not the only one. Trust me. I bought it on that too.
Yeah, but it should have covered Chris Godwin fumbles going into the end zone. Like that'll happen maybe one other time this year, maybe. That's just that's ridiculous. But Dallas doesn't play defense. I think they're going to get lit up by the Chargers. Chargers defense actually is pretty solid. It's not as good as Tampa's, but I think there's a lot of hype coming into this game. Prescott did look phenomenal, but even though Prescott looked phenomenal, he is kind of a stat filler, man. Like I believe that, and he might be in the MVP conversation because of the numbers he's going to put up. But I don't think Dallas is going to be that good. This is a tough sell for me, but I mean, I don't love the 3. I do think there's going to be a lot of points, but it's going to be one of those games that it could come down to whoever has the ball last.
Yeah, that's definitely what it's going to. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's probably what it's going to come down to, and I think the over's a lock. And also, one thing to note about the Cowboys is just their defense is going to progressively get better as far as I'm concerned because they've got a lot of young talent.
It's interesting. Cowboys since 2019, they're 15-18 against the spread, 20-13 over under. So they score points. They don't always cover the spread. In fact, they're less than 500 to covering the spread. So this is definitely going to be an interesting one. It's one of the headline games at 425, game of the week. And I'm looking forward to it, man. I think Justin Herbert could come out there and throw 350, 4 touchdowns. I think he can light these suckers up. Seriously.
The next face of the league, possibly. We'll see. Him and Mahomes right there with each other. In the same division, no less.
Just as a quick reminder, I put him at plus 1,200 to lead the league in passing yards this season because I really believe in Herbert, and I don't think there's going to be a sophomore slump with him. Moving on here, we have the Titans Seahawks, another high total, 54, where the Seahawks are favored by 5.5 points at home against your Tennessee Titans. Give me your thoughts here.
Okay, dumpster fire right now because Mike Vrabel's fighting with his star wide receiver that he just acquired for pocket change of draft picks, and he's already picking a fight with him in week 1. So I don't like how that's looking. The run game is a porous mess right now. Ever since Jack Conklin has left, they have not filled that right tackle spot properly. And Johnny, I'm trying not to lose my patience here because I'm a fan of this team and I bleed these colors, but damn, it is just unbearable to watch how Mike Vrabel wants nothing to do with the offense. Like, you want to criticize your best player, but then you want nothing to do with the play calling, nothing involved with the scheme, nada. Not a damn thing. I can't take it with Mike Vrabel. But so I'm just going to get to the point here with the game. I think the Seahawks cover. I think, Seattle's just going to have that balanced game that they always go with, except I think they're going to let Russ cook a little more this year because he demanded it basically in the offseason, more likely than not. And I like the over because Tennessee's defense is a dumpster fire.
So here's the thing. I know the Titans are really bad. And I don't want to take a sample off one game. Let's call it what it is. Seattle's
right.
Hold on. Because Seattle's defense, dude, they've gotten better since they acquired Carlos Dunlap last year. They did. Absolutely, but they're still not that good. And let me tell you something here about Tennessee. As bad as they are, dude, they're still a good team. Like, I have to give them another shot. Like, their offensive line played really bad, but you know what? I always take the road team getting 5 or 5.5, and I want to back the Titans. I really do. I very well may, but here's an interesting point. Everybody needs to hear. Everybody needs to hear this. In his career, Russell Wilson is 9-0 in home openers. Let me say that again. In his career, Russell Wilson is 9-0 in home openers. Average margin of victory is 12.6 points. However, since 2016's, their wins have only been by an average of 4.4. Every win's been 5 or less, except for the Cowboys in 2018 when that was by 11. So while I would think Seattle wins, I could see Tennessee cover and give them problems. I think Tannehill, he's going to get it figured out. They need to go back to play action. They only ran play action on 11.6% on Sunday, where, they were in the mid-30s the last 2 years of Arthur Smith. And even though Seattle's 55-17 straight up at home, 41-29-2 against the spread, while I see them winning, I definitely think Titans plus 5.5, aside from the old adage, is actually a pretty solid bet on the road.
Okay. I don't hate that, but at the same time, the only way that I think that that's going to happen, John, is if the Titans can sustain the ball, get Derrick Henry rolling. He's got 25 touches, over 115 yards on the ground. And they, like you said, rely on that play action. 30% of their passing game last year was based off that, and now it's 11%. So, I mean, it's based off of the best player in your offense, which even though they acquired Julio Jones, let's face it, the best player the Titans have is Derrick Henry, bar none.
I mean, he's been their bread and butter, man. He's the guy that everybody game plans around. He opens everything up for the receivers. So absolutely, like, I'll say this. If Tennessee comes out on Sunday against Seattle and plays in any similar fashion to how they played against the Cardinals, then I'm going to start really being concerned. And I'm not even going to be concerned from, watching this team from a betting perspective. I'm going to be concerned from a fantasy perspective. It's going to be a dangerous game to anybody that got involved in a lot of high-priced acquisitions and players for these Tennessee Titans.
Henry, Brown, and Julio.
Even Tannehill.
Well, Tannehill went late in a lot of drafts if you were smart about it.
Yeah, but everybody's still counting on him to be a QB1 and a guy that could put up, 20 to 25 as a floor every week. But wrapping up here to our last game, we got the Chiefs-Ravens. That's Sunday night. How are you feeling about this game? Do you think this is the time that Baltimore finally gets off the schneid? Lamar Jackson can finally dethrone Patrick Mahomes in a game in the regular season or the playoffs?
No, and I wanted to comment on this when we had Kevin along, but that's all right. We'll get to it now. The point is that I think it's not about who you play, it's about when you play them. And the fact of the matter is the Kansas City Chiefs are as healthy as they could possibly be right now. And Baltimore, let's face it, their first-round draft pick is on the IR right now. And they're banged up a little bit. They played a tough game last night against a team in the Oakland Raiders who didn't go down without a fight. I mean, yeah, obviously Baltimore was pretty much in control, but they didn't go away. You know, I mean, the Raiders, they gave them a tough test. So as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't really impressed with Baltimore last night, especially from like a fantasy perspective, like, you know, because we talked about it, if Lamar Jackson was going to really establish himself as a fantasy quarterback and all that, he's got to get throwing the ball. And it just wasn't that great last night. So that being said, I'm going to take the Chiefs easily at 3.5 here, as far as I'm concerned. And then I'm going to go with the over because I still think that, again, here, you know, while I'm talking as bad as I am about the Ravens offense, they are so much better than the Chiefs defense, which is awful as far as I'm concerned. Just awful defense.
So, you know, and this is what we talk about. We've got to have better start betting earlier in the week. Assuming you watch the game and you pay attention, there's no injury news. This game opened up at 1. It's up to 3.5, maybe even 4 at some books. Like it's outrageous how quickly these lines move and people start hammering the Chiefs. Like who the hell's not going to hammer the Chiefs at 1 against anybody? But especially like the Ravens, who they've dominated. And here's the thing that concerns me. And the public's going to win sometimes. But if you look at the public money right now, 84% of the bets are on Kansas City. Like when it's so slanted like that, it's starting to be dangerous. And you know, at 1, 2, 2.5, you know, fine, whatever. But now it's 3.5. You know, that field goal can make a difference. But in terms of the actual game, like I'm with you. Like I don't see the Ravens winning. They're coming on a short week. That is one of those games. And I said this. The Ravens went up by 14 or more points since 2004. They've won 98 straight games. Yesterday was the first time since 2004 that they lost one, and they gave it away. A couple fumbles by Lamar Jackson. You know, the defense kept playing cover 0. Like they just did not look good. Like I don't know what was going on, but it just seemed like Baltimore was trying to give this game away, and in fact they did. Coming on a short week, and just they're very banged up as it is, and they didn't look good. They looked out of sync. Perhaps they were running a vanilla game plan, but if you look at it from this perspective. The Chiefs have won 4 straight games against the Ravens. Baltimore hasn't beat them since 2012. Mahomes is 3-0 in his career versus Baltimore, has 1,136 passing yards, 10 total touchdowns, 9 passing to 1 rushing, only 1 pick. He's averaging 378 yards per game and 3 touchdowns against them. He's outscored them 94-72. He's 2-1 against the spread, 2-1 over-under. Kansas City has already won 27 of the last 31 games. And, you know, Lamar Jackson struggled against the Chiefs in his career. He's only got 4 career touchdowns. There's not much reason for me to believe that Baltimore is ready to handle Kansas City coming off that deflating win. And it just doesn't make sense. I got to say, though, I really need everybody to pay attention on where the money is. I mean, listen, if there's one team that you can probably side with the public on in terms of a betting perspective, it's Kansas City. But, you know, tread carefully on the 3.5. You know, you're not likely to see it get down to 3. It's probably only going to go up, maybe even back up to 4, 4.5.
Just like you said, though, to point out what you made point of was when it gets one-sided like that, like 80-something%, like you said, it gets really dangerous because that's when usually some crazy stuff starts happening in the betting world.
When you start getting this, I like to say 65 and over. Once you're getting to like 65, 70%, you're approaching fade the public territory and you have to start really monitoring the line. But once you're like close to 75%, even between 70, 75, then that's really something you need to circle because it's so lopsided and the public is leaning on one side of the house. Like act like Vegas knows something that you don't, because they do. And there's a reason why they're so successful. The house always wins, because the way they adjust, there's something that they know. And take a look at this at a lot of these games, because week 1 featured a ton of games where there was lopsided action and a team that had the high percentage of the public on it lost. So take this into account. And maybe even though you're looking at a team that you really like against a certain team and be like, I want to back them. But if you're seeing them, like, for example, the Rams have 90% of the public bets as of today. That's outrageous. And that's also a big reason why, I might look to back the Colts at +4 at home this week, because as much as I love the Rams and they are my Super Bowl pick, I don't know if I could back a team with 90% of the public on them.
Home dog, too. And to make your point about what Vegas knows about games, right? Okay, so I'm sitting there watching, I was at my local bar and had games all over the place, A Sunday ticket was in there. It was beautiful. It was great to have Sunday back. Point is that San Francisco is playing Detroit. They're absolutely blowing them out. By the way, Raheem Mostert fans, sorry. Happens. That being said, it was absolute blowout. They had their backups in, and then all of a sudden, Detroit creeps back into the game. The line was at 8.5, and where does the final line end up? 8 points. Vegas always knows something.
Lions had to hit that 2-point conversion to push it to 8. Otherwise, it would have been 6 or would have been 10. And that's how it goes. That's how I lost my first play of the Sunday slate. It was a lock, 8.5. But this is exactly what happens. So, wrapping it up here, we got the gambling guineas, best betting trends of the week. You know what? It's a little early for me to put out my full picks. There's games that I do like, but here's two games that I can give you right now that I'm taking to the bank this week. It's a 6-point teaser. I like the Colts +10. You might even get them at +10.5. Just talking about it against the Rams. That's a lot of points at home. You know what? Listen, LA, I love them. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I backed them. I've put a lot of money into them. And even though I still think they probably will win this game, covering by 10 points, the reasons we just said, they have to travel east. They're coming off a very emotional win. And like I said, the public is backing them so hard. And, we're getting the Colts past the key number. So the Colts could still lose by 1 possession and still cover the teaser. And the other one's the Vikings at +10.5. Anytime you're getting past that key number is always helpful. Rather than betting the Cardinals, let's say at +4.5 down to or -4.5 down to +1.5 to a pick 'em. Like, listen, Arizona might win this game. That strategy might work, but I'm not buying the hype on the Cardinals just yet. They played a very out of sync Tennessee team, and a lot of it was because of the way they played and the way they game planned, but I'm not ready to write home just yet about these Arizona Cardinals. They're another team that's drawing a lot of hype and drawing a lot of money on the public percentage. And you know what, man? The Vikings, they were a little rusty, as you would expect in week 1, but they didn't play that terrible. They certainly could have won week 1. And I'll tell you what, if Minnesota won against the Bengals, the line might be a little bit different and things might be going a little bit of a different way. So I'm not jumping ship on Minnesota. I think getting them at 10.5 is a pretty good bet. And you got 2 teams in a 6-point teaser. That's 10 or more points. So why not? Let's get it. Kazadich is Gambling Guineas. Best play of the day. So listen, recapping my week 1 here.
I gotta write this time because I was doing it because when I'm looking into it on my camera, you're here on the left, but I got to do it this way. So on the screen, I'm actually pointing towards it. So
recapping my week 1, went 11-9. It wasn't great.
Over 500,
55%, but 20 plays I put out on the slate in week 1. 6 on Thursday night, and then the rest were over the span of Sunday afternoon into Monday night. I threw Survivor pick Broncos that covered through the teaser, hit the first teaser of the season. But I had a couple really bad spreads. The Niners, we just touched on 8.5. That was a lock. That should have happened. The Bucks, the guy Godwin fumbles going into the end zone. That would have covered. And then the Ravens just gave it away. So, that's not always going to happen. We're going to keep building on it and go strong. And I just want to remind everybody, last year, the first month of the season, I had to be hitting at over 70%. I mean, I was on an absolute tear. So just back the kid real quick. What do you think, Kyle?
Hey, you know what? I think that you're giving everybody a lot of good stuff to work with, as far as a lot of numbers, a lot of data, a lot of statistics to work with. So, hey, I'm not going to say you're wrong. Look, a lot of crazy stuff can happen. That's why they play the game, John. And clearly, we don't. We're not professionals. We don't know everything. We're not in Vegas making the odds and whatnot. We're human beings, just like everybody else. But clearly, you got over 50%. That's the name of the game, bro. Breaking even.
So follow my Instagram, follow my Twitter at Gambling Guinea, Twitter at _JohnnyVTV, putting out all my picks each week. I should have everything out probably towards the end of the week, but now you know the teaser that I like. And honestly, I'd say take it now, get it at 10, 10.5. I mean, maybe the line moves a little bit, but having one thing at 10 or more is great, but having two things at 10 or more, especially when the talent disparity isn't gigantic. It's not like Jaguars, Chiefs. It's teams that are, fairly matched. Let's not forget about Indianapolis's defense, FYI, against the Rams. Let's not forget about them. Missing Xavier Rhodes was a key factor. Yes, they are a little rusty, but the Rams can be ran on. And listen, let's go Colts plus 10. Let's go Vikings plus 10.5. So, Kyle, what are your final thoughts heading into the week?
My final thoughts are two things. One, I got, a little blurb here on ESPN. Once Upon a Time in Queens starts tonight, parts 1 and 2 for the New York Mets back in 1986 through that late 80s era. That's going to be a hell of a story. I mean, there's like 10 different documentaries on it already out, but, ESPN does a really good job with their 30 for 30s and whatnot. So it should be phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. Another thing, too, is I also saw was Mark Ingram available in 87% of fantasy leagues. It's looking like he's going to be a big target. I would say yes, obviously him, but also look at Elijah Mitchell this week in your fantasy leagues as well.
And I would say, fantasy-wise, for those that don't want to blow their budget on Elijah Mitchell, because the way the Niners roll, everybody knows Shanahan's the worst running backs. You could go a little bit of a cheaper route. He's not maybe as much of an immediate impact, but he's a guy you could fill in your flex. Is Cordero Patterson, man. I mean, if something happens to Mike Davis, he's getting more carries. But listen, he's a running back. He's a receiver. He's a big dude. He could catch the ball. He could run. I mean, he had 7 carries.
Return game, too.
7 carries for 54 yards. And he's looking like a guy that could really step into a prominent role. And, Arthur Smith did not get him just to sit him on the bench. He's going to get him involved. So he's a guy that you can get out there for pretty cheap. So I will go get Cordell Patterson. And I got to say, man, dude, let me tell you something. A couple weeks ago, I watched Malice at the Palace. If you have it on Netflix, go watch Malice at the Palace. It honestly opens up. There's so many things I did not know about this.
It opens up Pandora's box about the thing. It really does, because the way I looked at it, Johnny, now that you say that, it's funny because I used to look at the Pacers as they were exactly how they portrayed them in the media, how they were saying, oh, they were the thugs and everything. They had 30,000 people turn on them. That's a mob mentality. It's called Survive. So
it was crazy, man. I loved it though. I loved the documentary. I thought it was really cool. And, we were younger when it happened, but I mean, I certainly remember it, but we were younger.
I was watching live
in our 20s. Yeah. No,
I was like 8. I was like 8 or 9 watching it. It's great. Oh no. I was probably more like 13 or so. I remember it was crazy.
Cutting out on me. So for everybody, appreciate everybody joining us. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at _JohnnyVTV. Nick is at Nick_Durst, and Kyle doesn't have a Twitter, but Kevin is Boogie Down Picks, and follow us on Instagram. I'm at Gambling Guinea, at JohnnyVTV. Nick's at Nick's Food and Stuff, and Kyle's at the Kyle Donnelly. Thank you very much for having us. Ciao.